Gibson has gone out in that car now, and everybody happy. Another one that's in the garage with another power steering related failure is the number 50 Vantage Racing Aston Martin. A real shame this, because they'd almost got themselves back up onto the first page of the screen very early in the race yesterday. That car was out for a long time. It got involved in a crash earlier in the race, I think in the first hour of the race, and then it had a pretty big ABS failure which sent the car off at Stowe Corner on Tom Black's outlap. So they were on the back front right from the start, dropped to the foot of the page, and were pretty much dead last, and they'd almost got themselves back up onto the first page of the screen, but now they've had this power steering failure, so more dramas for them.
I think it's worth, if you're around the circuit and you've and you've got a stopwatch or something, it might be worth just timing the gap between number 3 and number 2. They're lying first and second, but they're 4 laps and a bit apart. But the gap is coming down slowly, not very slowly, actually quite quickly, between the two of them. So it's kind of worth looking out for the number 3 Top Cat Moser, the black and silver car, which is being chased down now by the Ferrari number 2. And as I say, when it finally catches it, it won't be taking the lead. It'll just be getting itself so that it's less than 4 laps behind rather than more than 4 laps behind. So it's all part of this long chase that the Eclipse Motorsport car, the McInerney plus Phil Keane trio of drivers have had to do.
The lead car, by the way, if people want to know at the moment, is going down under the bridge and just into the complex into Brooklands. That's where they are right now.
And Michael McInerney, or rather, who's at the wheel? It's Phil Keane
still, yes.
In number 2. He's lapping 5 seconds a lap quicker.
And he's going out of the bridge right now, Brian. So they will be visible very soon on the same bit of track, as it were.
For those who come to motor races without stopwatches.
Yes. The import of which is that at that rate they should get at least 1 lap back off the Top Cat Racing Mosler in the relatively near future, Paul.
Well, yes, it's all about a question of counting down to the next set of pit stops as well. Yeah. But yeah, it's down to 11 seconds now. So yes, somebody used the expression of dog seeing rabbit, I think, earlier on. A similar expression applies now, I think.
But look at those 2 last lap times. The Top Cat was 2:19.8. Phil Keane was 2:11.8. That was an 8-second advantage to the Ferrari, and that's really quite spectacular, isn't it?
It certainly is, yes. And as I say, it's just really counting down to pit stop time, because, as I say, when you're driving like Phil Keane is, suddenly your fuel consumption isn't quite as good as it was before. Phil Keane is due in, let's have a look, on his next lap. He'll be about 400 and... Yeah, it's not that far away, is it? At 50. Yeah, it's kind of due now, I would say. So it may not happen before they do have to come into the pits. Again, we'll have the spectre of the rabbit disappearing down the hole.
They're on matching pit stops, aren't they? 20 at the moment, shortly to be 21.
Matching in terms of count of them. Yes, that's right. And they're about, they were about half an hour apart, with the Mosler coming in first. But after Mike McInerney's good performance, he got a lot of the that gap back, and getting the fuel consumption down. But of course, that's going the other way now.
Guys, this is a bit of a sprint race at the moment. The leader is onto the Wellington Straight, and now onto the Wellington Straight goes car number 2. So we've got first and second, both down under the bridge, and very, very reachable. And I would guess that unless number 3 comes into the pits this time,
which it might,
we could see him sitting on the same piece of turf. Here we go.
It's not coming in. It is continuing, at least for 1 more lap, as is the Phil Keane driven McInerney Ferrari. So they're both staying out for 1 more lap at least, and on that lap we might just see a reversal of play. We might just see Phil Keane go past the Top Cat Mosler to retrieve a lap right in front of a pit stop.
Might happen. 5.8 seconds was the gap immediately before that lap started, and the difference in terms of lap times was 5.7 seconds. So he's closing in, so they'll, as I say, they'll either do another lap without knowing exactly how much fuel is on board. I would, as I say, guess that they're on pretty much the same fuel strategy now because of the way that these things are falling out.
They got one car between them on the road, and no, they haven't anymore. They've managed to clear that one, so dog can see the rabbit now. They're down at Club, just disappearing behind the Duxford wing. And up the new straightaway, as they insist on calling it, over the pond. And, oh, come on, I want to see them both on the same piece of territory. Lights ablaze, right. Of course, they are typically getting into the thick of the traffic now. But, yes, the leader into the loop. One car now between first and second. It is the little 95 Jet Black Racing car onto the Wellington Straight. Then goes the leader. Onto the Wellington Straight goes second place, and there's now nothing between them but fresh air, but I think enough of a gap. So we'll see. Will they come in this time? Will one of them come in, or will they both stay out? Well, they're in your neck of the woods.
Absolutely. They're not yet nose to tail, but number 3 it does have a hazard in front of it. Now, is it coming in? Yes, I know it's not. No, it's not. It's carrying on, as is Phil Keane. Now, is he going to be held up by number 91? Not really, but of course they are driving with a degree of caution, and so they don't really want to exchange metal with each other, if it is metal.
I mean, this is a sort of chase that you think it can't go on like this for the rest of the race because it's too intense, and I don't think any of them can hold it up for that length of time. But it is very interesting to watch, not only just because it's fun, but also because it gives you an idea of what might happen in about 4 hours' time if the chips are down, and rather than battling for the question of four laps down, they're actually battling for position on the track.
But they're on Hanger Straight, side by side. That it's lovely stuff. When you think how many hours into the race this is, and yes, there are laps between them, but it's lovely to see two fine pieces of racing machinery going at it like knives, whatever the situation in the race. And I would guess,
I think it's got to happen.
Yeah, it has happened. I guess it has happened already. I'm just trying to get to. I don't really get a clear view of Vale, to be honest. It's almost shadows they cross down there, but I'll wait and see as they come up through the new section. But I'm fairly certain that at least that number 2 will be past number 3, and that's as much as one could say at this stage of proceedings. And yes, it's happened. So the chase has happened. Now, you'd imagine, wouldn't you guys, that would perhaps encourage the number 3 car to come into the pits. It's one of those things, isn't it? You get overtaken, you think, oh well, time for a change.
Well, yeah, overtaken, but
it is time for a change
reduces
anyway.
it from 4 laps to 3 laps adrift, so they are still the race leaders in car number 3, the Top Cats Mosler, and yes, I think we've got them. And the Mackinard Ernie car is coming round, and I think you may be right, Robin, that they may have been induced. No, they haven't. They're staying out for another lap, but through goes number 2, through goes number 3, as far as we're concerned, still in the lead with 457 laps completed, but now only leading by 3 plus laps.
Three and a whole lot,
yes,
rather than 4 and just a little.
Yeah. But what is the message there, Paul? What do you think is meant by drive-through penalty for car 88? Refueling infringement. I wonder which one of the many ways you could infringe that would be.
Either they put too much in when the safety car was out, or they had some kind of procedural problem, like they didn't have their regulation equipment on, the fire attendant wasn't standing by. They have to have a fire attendant standing by whilst the fuel is going in. or
they have
you
to be wearing gloves as well.
You have to keep people well away from the car. They have to stand away from a certain distance. Or the driver wasn't out of the car. The car has to have its doors closed whilst the refuelling is going on, and the driver has to be out of the car. And all of those could lead to a stop-go for a refuelling infringement.
Now, is this an old message or not for the team manager for car 68 to go to race control? Remember, he's in 3rd place in his class. He's in 6th place overall. No.
I think it's a new one, to be honest,
I
Brian.
think it's new.
Yeah.
So Dave will be marching up the stairs to find out what's offended the race officials. The Aquila goes through. It's down in 14th place, 58 laps behind the race leader. And the race leader, 457, is he still on schedule to exceed, what is it, 2,000?
2,000 miles. Yeah, 2,000 miles is still within range. I hate to repeat myself, but there's a long way to go. But no, it's certainly still within range.
Good.
The number of laps that we're looking at for 2,000 miles is 547. So just change the numbers around and you've got it. As the race leader goes through, and for a moment it'll say 3 laps on the screen, as the Mosler is coming through as well. So they're staying out, they're getting as much as they can out of the tank. Again, it's a 7-second gain that time. This is going very well indeed for Phil Keane. He's making up the sort of gains now that he needs to make up, and his team will be communicating that kind of thing to him, and Sean McInerney will be preparing himself to take over, I suspect, knowing that he then has to live up to the laps that Phil Keane has done. And of course we've got Henry Fletcher in the Top Cat Mosler at the moment, and he should be handing over to Freddie Hetherington.
Would they? No, they...
Yeah, I don't think... Well, the Top Cat's car hasn't actually ever double-stinted, at least not whilst I've been paying attention, they haven't. Phil Keane, I don't think, has ever single-stinted. So Phil is... actually on his 2nd stint already, so it will be a change for Phil Keane, because he's already been in, taken a load of fuel on.
Will Sean have to double stint in order to ensure that Phil Keane can go back out again, or would they be prepared to gamble and put Michael back out for some reason? Because there are still 4 hours and 59 minutes remaining.
Yes, both are possible. However, the thing that kind of eats most naggingly into my brain is that because Mike didn't drive during the night, Phil and Sean between them are going to be more tired than the Top Cats teams are, purely because they've been doing it as a 2-man team across the night, whereas the Top Cats team have had their 3 drivers in operation throughout the 24 hours, day or night.
And of course it's a cumulative effect, isn't it? A fatigue factor.
Yeah. Yes.
I thought you might be aware of that one.
No, I can't empathise with very much of what's going on out there, but I can empathise with the cumulative effect of tiredness.
Another question then, while your head's dropping, we know that from the general public's point of view, we know that there is a minimum of 3 drivers per team. Is there a minimum that each driver has to then drive? Would it be possible for one of the drivers to do just 1 stint of less than 3 hours, and then the other 2 divide the stuff up between them? Is that allowed?
Yes, that's allowed. I think the only regulation, I'll just check before I finish the sentence, but as far as I know, the only regulation is that you're not allowed to drive for any more than 3 hours in any 5-hour period.
Right, so effectively you can do a long stint, but then your next driver has to do a long stint as well before you be allowed back in.
Or you leave the car parked up for an hour whilst you wait for your time to elapse and you can then get back in.
That's no fun.
No, minimum of 3 drivers, maximum of 6 drivers. And as I say, the driving time would, unless I can't see anything that I've missed, is only that no more than 3 hours in any 5-hour period. Some drivers are down to drive 2 cars, and of course then it is cumulative. You get both cars added to your time.
Right.
Now, 459. We're about to notch up 460 laps, which seems like some sort of a benchmark, with just under 5 hours remaining. And it's still number 3 that's leading this race. But I noticed that the interval between the McInerney Ferrari going through and the Top Cat Mosler arriving across our imaginary line, if you like, is growing in size and time, and therefore no, there's a Top Cat car coming into the pits, and that is indeed number 57, which is the second in Class 3.
Yeah, it's about to get busy down at Top Cats because they're bringing 2 cars in pretty much at the same time, because Freddie Hetherington is getting ready to get into the race leading car as well. So 27 is in now, and in the garage next to it fairly shortly. It's going to be synchronised, this. They've had to make sure, in fact they're rolling the 27 car back the Marcus out the way a little bit to make sure there's plenty of space for the race leading car to get into its pit box. So a busy time ahead. As I said, the busy team here with the 3 cars that they've been running, and 54 pit stops they got through last year between the 3 cars. And in then comes the race leading machine number 3 at Mosler, and parks up right in front of its teammates. So Freddie Hetherington ready to get in, and the car is going to be refueled, and some brand new slicks, it looks like, being readied, at least for the rears. So the rears, I think, being readied. Henry Fletcher gets out of the car, having picked up the lead during that stint, of course, and try and grab a word with him shortly. And Freddie Hetherington, who is, again, a very good driver, very quick driver, it's a good driver lineup for the team, will be getting into to that one soon. So the Mosler in, probably won't be long before the Ferrari that's chasing it down, the Eclipse car, comes in either.
In the meantime, of course, it's racking up a bigger gap, and it is getting closer to it representing 3 laps advantage to the Top Cat Racing Mosler. I know that the Ferrari's got to pit, but all the while that Phil Keane is out at the present moment, whilst it's in the pit time, he's reducing that gap.
Sorry, Brian, I just need to correct myself, because I suggested earlier on that Phil Keane was on the second half of a double stint. It's kind of partially true, because he's on the second half of a very short stint where he came in and took on more fuel while the safety car was out a little while ago. So he's in a position to stay in the car if the team want him to, and if he feels able to, bearing in mind how hot it gets in these closed cars. Even though the Ferrari's engine is in the back, it still gets pretty hot inside the closed car. There's a lot of obviously energy that you're dissipating, and of course, although this being a FIA car, it's probably got air conditioning fitted, which is going to make it much more comfortable for Phil. That might be something worth bearing in mind, Chris, to ask Phil about when he comes out, whether the air conditioning is on in the car. You want to tell us something else, though?
Yeah, just that the leaders have gone back out. So the number 3 car with Freddie Hetherington behind the wheel is probably just about down with you now, Robin, down heading towards Beckett's, and the 27 Marcus has gone back out as well, just at the end of the pit lane.
Yes, he's gone past us now, and looks completely back up to speed. So 3, 2, and then 49 and 57. Now the 57 Marcus Racing has, well, that's been into the pits and out again, and they were 1 lap down on the Aston 49, but they should, I would imagine, claw that back when they come in for their stop. Scuderia Vittoria, who are racking up the pit stops, they're leading at the moment with 23 stops. They are in again, running in 18th place though. I noticed there was another penalty. I think car 68 picking up a penalty for speeding in the pit lane.
Yes, I mean, I think that's again possibly as a result of tiredness creeping in, possibly as a result of finger trouble on the steering wheel to press the right button. You know, all kinds of things can possibly contribute to that. The Aquila is out once again, drive shafts repaired. It's now coming back into the pits. It was Gareth Evans, I think, you put into that one last time for us, Chris. So Gareth coming into the pits, and I would suggest that possibly gives a chance to John Martin to have another go. As in comes the Ferrari this time. This is the second place Ferrari. Phil Keane coming in car number 2. And is Sean McInerney standing by? Is Mike standing by? Or is Phil going to stay out? My money would be on Phil staying out for another hour. But you're there, Chris. You'll be able to tell us what they do when this car number 2, the second place car, the one that led the race for so long, reaches its pit. Ferrari going along then to its pit box.
It's not far in, is it, Paul? It's probably only about the third or fourth garage.
I tried to time it so it would just get to Chris at the right time, but either Chris is doing something else at the moment, or he's having battery trouble or something. But this is what happens every time I try and do something clever. It always falls flat on its face. So wait. Here he is. There's Chris.
Yeah, go on. I just caught the back end of that because I was chatting with Emily Fletcher and Henry Fletcher, and Henry's going to come and have a chat with us in a minute once he's cooled down. It's very hot out there. So, what was the back end? I caught the back end of that.
You've got an Eclipse Ferrari in the pits doing a pit stop, and I need to know whether Phil Keane's staying in. My suggestion is that he probably is.
Right. Well, I'm literally at the polar opposite end of the pit lane, but when he comes, I will go and find out for you. But when he strolls past me at the end of the pit lane, I'll probably be able to tell from the helmet which one it is. I expect it's going to be Sean, isn't it?
Well, no, I think Phil may stay in.
Okay.
That's my position. My suggestion is that Phil will stay in.
Okay. Well, I'll keep my eyes peeled, and hopefully I'll grab a word with Henry in a minute. We spoke to Emily Fletcher last night, and I said, "Do you get much sleep then?" And she said, "I mostly get an hour." And the thing with these drivers is that they have to be in the garage as soon as the stint before them comes about. So basically, they have to be on patrol and in the garage and ready about an hour and a half before they actually are due in the car, just in case situations change, safety cars mean, or problems with the car mean they have to come in early. Right, car's coming past me, and I think it was Phil in the car. Just come past me, so I'll go down and check for sure down at Eclipse in a couple of minutes. But yeah, the drivers really don't get that much chance to rest because they have to be on patrol that much early. It's not like they can turn up 10 minutes before the stint starts. They have to be on duty as soon as the stint before them ends.
So it's more like going to an airport and catching an aeroplane than it is getting on a train.
Yeah, and when she could have actually had a bit more downtime, she said, well, it was 8:15. Sort of everybody was up and about. It's very hard then to properly switch off. So she's just going to go through now on 1 hour's sleep in total.
Now, whilst you're doing all the other things that I've asked you to do, the number 27 Top Cats Marcos has been in. This is Emily Fletcher's car. Has been in for another stop immediately after its previous stop. So 2 stops on the trot.
It's in the garage actually. It's right next to me. So it's just coming. Neil Huggins had got into the car, and a quick word with David Upton. Apart from being very hot, he said all was fine with the car. So I'm going to investigate that one while I'm at this neck of the woods.
Yes, as I say, sorry to suddenly burden you with so many things. There's also a car off on the entrance into Brooklands, the left-hander at the end of Wellington Straight, and from the body language of the marshals, it is off on the outside of the corner before you get to Brooklands. There was a large cloud of smoke, and marshals leaping off their posts and waiting to decide what to do, or maybe it's just a car that stopped and got going again, and the marshals just came down to check. So lots of things to keep our eyes open for simultaneously. So on the assumption that it was Phil Keane staying at the wheel of the second place Ferrari, he did, let me just get this right because he did more laps, and I don't want to exaggerate how many more laps he did. He did 39 laps with the Ferrari that he was driving the wheels off, whereas Henry Fletcher did 30 laps in the Mosler that he was being very gentle with. Go work that one out. Obviously there's a number of reasons why it could have happened because the fuel loads are different in the cars, but significantly more laps gained by Phil Keane on that last stint. bearing in mind that he did actually stop whilst the safety car was out to put more fuel in, and that probably meant that it was fueled up above the 75 litre mark. So here he comes again, Phil Keane having completed his pit stop and his out lap. He's now back on track and goes through in a time of 4 minutes 46, which includes the pit stop time, which means adding 2 minutes 10 to 1:30. 40, yeah, that's about right, isn't it? For Phil Keane. No, it's not. It's a bit too long, isn't it? It was a slightly longer stop. As and when you do catch up with the Eclipse, it seemed that it might have been a slightly longer stop than it might have been. Whether anything extra was done there, we need to find out. So we still have this battle for the lead. It's back up to 4 laps and something rather than less than 4 laps as a result of that slightly longer pit stop from the Eclipse Ferrari team. So the Top Cats car, no, maybe the Top Cats car, let me just let this one work its way out. As the stagger unwinds. Chris?
Yeah, I'm at Top Cats. First of all, got Henry Fletcher here. Henry, successful stint that, in that you've picked up the lead of the race, but goodness me, it's getting hot out there and you're starting to suffer, aren't you?
Yeah, the McInerney Ferrari is chasing us down, so we've got to keep pushing. We can't just rest. You know, it's still a long way to go, and we've just got to keep pushing. The grip levels are right down, certainly for my last stint, which was sunrise this morning. So the car's moving around a lot. The Moseley's quite a big, heavy thing. You watch the Ferrari come past, its direction changes. So nice on it. But yeah, you know, it looks good. We're running, we're there or thereabouts. We're sort of keeping them at a steady pace. So if we can keep this going, then we're looking quite good.
You get lots of feedback from the team when you're out there in terms of what target times you sort of need to reach. That we know the Ferrari's a bit quicker at the moment, but it doesn't matter too much to you because you had the 4-lap advantage. But over 6 hours, that is going to come down. So you've got target times you've been told about all the time, have you?
We kind of know kind of what to run to. It's not really a specified thing. It's don't thrash the car, but keep it, you know, but push. So we're, you know, short shifting a bit, running gears higher. We're not using second anywhere. Staying off the bigger curbs and just trying to give it a nice time. But at the same time, we've got to keep we can't sit back. And I'd rather push anyway. You keep your concentration up. The second you start to you know, your mind wanders and then you can plough off the road. So a lot of people have done it. In many ways, I'd rather just drive like that, and that's what you're concentrating on.
And finally, Henry, the fact that it's getting hotter now, you're already done all this racing, so that it's you know, the tiredness is starting to set in, and the car is perhaps not behaving as well as it was at the start of the race. Is this now becoming the most difficult stage of the race, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is where drivers start making big mistakes. I mean, in night time, people, you know, there's people going off and stuff, but now it's where fatigue kicks in. We didn't really get any sleep because we're running hour on, 2 hours off, hour on. So by the time you've come in, got changed, had some food, had a massage, suddenly you're like, all right, I've got to be back in the pit garage. So yeah, we haven't really slept. I think I've had 40 minutes in total. So I'm just trying to, you know, fluid load and just try and keep going. It's seriously hot in that car, so we'll just keep pushing.
All right, Henry, appreciate your time. Thanks very much. Good luck.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much there, Henry Fletcher. Right, next door, the news, the 27 car. Well, there are two things. One, it's had a misfire for about 18 hours now, which comes and goes, Emily Fletcher's just told me. So some sessions it's fine, other sessions it comes back and it gets a bit lethal because you suddenly lose a load of power with cars right up your chuff going down the straight. But Neil Huggins has gone out, and the reason it's come into the garage is because on his out lap, he made contact with another car and has made damage to the front right wheel. So they've just about finished replacing that now. They're about to push the car back out, and the number 27 machine will rejoin fairly shortly. Right, so partially self-inflicted then it would seem from Neil Huggins, but good to hear from Henry Fletcher. And yeah, I mean,
on the out. Let me first of all correct what I said earlier on, because the gap is still as it was before, so just under 4 laps, 3 laps and a lot, and the two cars nose to tail very nearly 4 laps apart. However, Phil Keane, we're still working on the assumption, we need to be absolutely sure, please Chris, is not lapping any more quickly now than Freddie Hetherington is. So it's not really a case of Freddie Hetherington going that much more quickly than Henry was. It's just a case that Phil Keane isn't quite going as quickly as he was towards the end of that last stint. Now, it may be that he's warming the tyres up slowly in an effort to get more lifetime out of them, rather than just go out and go straight as fast as you can on them, warm them up a little bit slowly. So he's just dialing himself in. But in any event, it's still a fascinating battle. But for 2 laps now, we haven't seen the gap reduce between first and second. And that's the first time that's happened for about an hour.
48, the Don Grice BMW. That's been tunnelling around about, I think, 29th odd place, maybe 39th it dropped to. But that one's had problems down the bottom of the circuit, and that is under tow, and will be back in the pit garages probably in about a minute and a half's time. Another car coming back towards us, Paul, being recovered, and this one on the on a low loader. So I don't know, it's coming from the same direction. Whether or not there's an incident between those two cars, I don't know. But that one doesn't appear to have much bodywork damage, so that's all right. 91 will soon be back in the pits. It's on the back of one of those big boys, Piranha Motorsport Ginetta. That one, it will be home soon in the garages.
Yes, I was about to say, if I'd had my microphone on, that I was a bit disappointed to hear that it's still nearly 4 laps between our two leaders, because I thought I'd visibly seen before they actually came in for their pit stop. And there it is out now with Phil Keane still on board. That's interesting, because we thought there might be a change to Sean. Didn't we?
Well, Chris is checking that, to be fair. He saw the car go past and said he thinks it was still Phil in there. I just wanted kind of a check on that, because it's not lapping as quickly relative to the Mosler as it was before. However, the Mosler, we know for certain, has had a driver change, and that now has Freddie Hetherington at the wheel. Henry was describing how difficult it was to drive with the car sliding around all over the place, and it may well be the new set of tyres and Freddie Hetherington behind the wheel, the combination of those two things has improved the Mosler's handling and has meant that they are now pretty much a match for one another, or if anything, the Mosler is rapidly hauling in once again on the Ferrari. So tense situation all round, and no doubt lots of nail biting going on down in the pit garages, but it's the sort of situation where, depending what you do to the car and who you put in it, the whole complexion of the race can change, and that's another factor why, if you've not been to an endurance race before, you should kind of stick with it. I know it's a bit complicated, but come back again. And
the evidence is there to support your assumption, because he did in the Mosler a 2:15 and half a second quicker than the Ferrari. Now,
yes, exactly.
On that last lap.
Exactly, and that's the third lap, and every lap since the pit stop, the Mosler has been quicker. And he's bearing down once again on the back of the Ferrari in order to try and get that 5-lap margin, the 4-lap margin back properly, rather than it being 3 laps and an awful lot.
We also see that 53, the Orient Express, is it? No, it's not the Orient. Yes, it is the Orient Express. Is now up to 6th overall. It's 4th in class. It's 3 laps behind the Intersport BMW, which is quite a bunch. 13 laps behind the Core Oyster Evora, and that is 1 lap behind the Aston Martin.
Yes, I mean, that's been a terrific catch-up drive, as I was saying earlier on. The reason why it's managed to pick up those 2 extra places, one is because of the problems that we've been hearing from Chris that the Top Cats Marcos has had, but also as a pit stop, which we've now had from the number 66 Dorset Racing Porsche. So that car is in the pits, and of course that then has allowed the number 53 to come through and take the place. Chris?
Yeah, I'm there now, and Pete Morris has got out of the car. I can't see his face because he's still got his helmet on, but the way he's walking back, you can tell it's starting to sap the energy out of them now. So routine stop for the 66 Porsche. Fuel now going into the car. The answer to your question with Eclipse is that it's Michael McInerney in the car now, not Phil Keane any longer.
Right, okay. And that's going to ensure that Sean is well and truly rested, because of course Sean was driving all through the night. And I mean, it was quite clear to hear Chris. I mean, you were actually standing in front of him from Henry Fletcher when you were talking to him. That fatigue is going to play a role. You know, I mean, you can't do a 24-hour race with this level of intensity, getting only, what did he say, 40 minutes of sleep. You know, it's a tall order for all of those Top Cats drivers. The way they've scheduled it, 1 hour on, 2 hours off throughout the race, it's going to start having an impact at some point, I think.
Are you the exception that proves the rule?
What about not? I'm not operating as effectively as I was at 4:30 yesterday afternoon.
It's doing a great job as far as I'm concerned, I can promise you. Now, who's this we got coming into the pit lane? No, it is a BMW.
Can't just say, Brian, you've got the 2 leading cars, albeit
good.
number 2 ahead of number 3. They're just coming in. They should be in the middle of the complex now. Not a lot between them on the road.
No, not a lot indeed. Led by the led as the 2 cars race towards us by the Ferrari, but there goes the Mosler, and that means that the Mosler has yet again lapped quicker than the Ferrari, with the Mosler doing a 2:16, call it 3, and the Ferrari doing a 16:8. So once again, there's about half a second to the advantage of the Mosler, which, if it goes past the Ferrari, is going to get back into that situation where it has its 4-lap advantage.
Exactly.
4 full laps advantage.
4 and a bit laps of advantage, rather than just under 4 laps. Exactly. I mean, it won't be the end of the world if it is, because of course they're playing it as a long game, and it is a long game, even though we're 3/4 of the way through this race, more than that now. It is a long game because there's still long enough for getting Sean rested and getting Phil Keane rested, and then they'll be fit for the end of the race. So it's a wise move getting Mike into the car now. And yesterday he was driving in the daylight hours, and he was holding his end up. He's holding his end up now. He's not losing as much time to the Mosler as the Mosler was losing to Phil Keane when Phil Keane was in the car. So you know, this is what makes it so exciting. It's a fascinating battle.
I'm annoyed with myself. I should have thought of the Michael McInerney option, because there's no doubt that perhaps surrendering a little, this might be a short 1-stop stint for Michael McInerney, and we might then see Sean in the car, I'm not saying to the end of the race, but keeping Phil Keane up their sleeves in case they need it. But with Michael, he could short stint here, couldn't he?
I think he'll probably stay out until the fuel is used up.
Yes.
And he'll be trying to establish the
same...
They
won't want an extra pit stop, will they?
No, but he'll be trying to establish the same kind of fuel economy that he did on his last lap, on his last stint, just before it all went wrong for Phil Keane. That will be, as I say, what the objective will be, without losing too much ground, and I think they'll be able to achieve that. Now, mostly McInerney did go through there, didn't he?
Yes, he did. McInerney went through, followed by the Top Cat Mosler, and once... Actually, this time the difference...
I didn't see him go through.
I promise you they both did.
Okay, good.
And the interesting thing is that the Top Cat Mosler did a 2:18.7, whereas Michael McInerney did a 2:15?
Yep.
2:15.4. So he clawed 3 second advantage, virtually a little bit more than 3 seconds advantage out of the Mosler on that occasion.
Yeah, they're deep in the middle of going through a 6-car train at the moment, so a lot of work for the two leaders.
All right.
And that'll be another area where the Ferrari has an advantage, I suspect. Remembering what Henry Fletcher was saying about his car sliding around a little bit more. When the Ferrari came past him, he said how well that was able to change direction. Of course, that's exactly what you need when you're going past traffic. News from Chris?
Yeah, I'm down at Dorset Sports Cars, and Pete Morris has just got out the 66 Porsche, which is running in 8th place now. And had you not had a brake problem earlier on, Pete, you got the pace that you could have challenged for a top 5 and certainly a podium in terms of your class.
Yeah, we had a problem with the brakes. We needed to change them all, basically. We've given the car such a pace in, the brakes wouldn't have lasted. So they put me in as a faster guy to try and catch up the pace. Tyres were like three stints all that was, and I'm a 50 fat. I think people that can see me out there are struggling with the front end grip, rear end grip. I was having a few power slides here and there, but we managed to claw back to 7th. So I wanted to come here and finish top 10. So if we can achieve that, I'll be well happy. So I'd like to thank all the fans for coming.
Absolutely right. Yeah. We've had a good turnout here this weekend, helped by some unseasonal weather. It's good for the spectators. It's not so good for you in the car, though. You probably didn't expect to get quite as hot this weekend.
No, we drilled some extra holes in the Perspex windows before I went out, so because I was getting a bit hot. And it's my 4th time doing the Brit car, so I took 2-year gap last time, but I'm loving it. And the Porsche 996, just a good car. Getting a bit tired now. I can feel a bit of the gearbox plate. It's getting a bit tight. A bit like the driver, I think. I'm ready for another nap.
You said the tyres were struggling getting old in that section. How's the circuit?
Circuit's got a lot of pickup. Well, there's debris everywhere now. It's quite greasy, and a lot of cars are still dropping oil. I've gone off a couple of times wide, but my mate's just got out now, Tim. So we'll find out. He's a steady pace driver, so hopefully he'll be okay.
All right, thanks very much for your time, and good luck for the rest of the race. Hope you get the top 10.
Michael McInerney is now beginning to be consistently quicker than the Mosler, right, Paul?
He's done it for 2 laps now, hasn't he? Or is it 3? This is a game of cat and mouse. I mean, they're not playing this. It's not a staged race. This is for serious. This is, as I say, there's no championship points. There's no playing to the crowd. They're just driving the socks off the cars. Now, it'll be traffic that's affecting it. It'll be slightly overdriving. Maybe the pressure is getting to Freddie Hetherington. Mike's a slightly older head on slightly wiser shoulders, perhaps, and the experience can pay off. So if you're thinking of leaving your seat, what on earth are you thinking of? It's a fascinating battle. One other little snippet that I've just picked out, which is something I've been looking for ages. We've been talking about the Orient Express, car number 53, currently placed 6th, Brian, and this car. Do you remember how many cars started this race?
57, I think.
It was in the end, exactly right. Well done, 57. At the end of the first hour, car number 53 was 54th. Okay, now just think about it. He's got himself 54th up to 6th, and this is a team of Japanese drivers. They've not been to Silverstone before. They've played themselves in, having had a rotten first hour. Don't say anything about them from now on, because it will all go horribly wrong if you do.
And from 54th
to 6th.
An amazing performance. Well done to the young Japanese drivers. And they are 3 laps adrift of the next step up the ladder, which is to catch and pass the number 68 Intersports BMW. So that's quite a long way away. Or is it? Because I noticed that 53 is lapping at 2:17s, whereas the 68 BMW is lapping on 2:21s, but it's still going to take a long time to unwind 3 laps, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yes, but meanwhile at the front of the field, another quicker lap there from both of them. It was an improved lap from McInerney, but an even better improvement, if you can have a better improvement, yes I think you can, an even better improvement from Hetherington in the Top Cats Mosler.
All right. 2:15.5.
Who's in the Aquila at the moment? Because that's giving it some steam. It's significantly quicker than either of the two leaders.
Now, I don't think we found out. That's one for Chris, because we had Gareth Evans in it, and I'm pretty sure we took Gareth out. And yes, I think Chris is going to have to answer that one, because
done a couple of 211s and a 212 in a row.
I seem to remember saying that gives an opportunity to John Martin to get in the car, but I didn't actually hear confirmation from Chris that he did so. So just in case you weren't running up and down enough, Chris, there's another little task for you to do. And we're very grateful. So we're 19 and a half hours now into the race. It's Sunday afternoon. That's another milestone I always find. There are certain traditions in our family that you do at 12 o'clock on a Sunday.
Get up. That's a tradition in my family.
I don't do that particular tradition on Le Mans weekend, on 24-hour weekends. But
no, we have to forego some pleasures.
Quite. But my father's joining me, I'm sure. So, as I say, that means that the race started at 4:30. It's 12 midday, so nice and easy to work out. We've got 4.5 hours to go. Here comes Mike McInerney driving around the outside of a Honda Civic as he comes through Woodcote, and Hetherington comes through. Yeah, the whole car just seemed a little bit more laborious somehow, I think is the word to describe it, as it comes through. The Mosler just, although it was still a little bit quicker lap in the end.
Yes, it is odd, isn't it? Because I know what you mean. It also sounded the last couple of laps just a bit more sluggish, but it's been quicker over both those laps.
Yeah,
very
I
odd.
think it's the difference between American and Italian V8 have different sounds. They may have the same number of cylinders, but the American way is different than the Italian way.
No doubt the American way is bigger, but that doesn't necessarily make it better.
No, quite.
The old joke about the navies. Okay. I think it's so old that I'm not going to repeat it.
Talking about joke about the navies, Brian, as we have such a huge presence from the army here, the 86 car, we're in the army now car, is still circulating. I noticed they had a penalty for, well, basically, let's face it, it's running over the curbs. It was one of those using more track than you ought to. They've been doing it in front of me a lot. I haven't been mentioning it because I didn't really want them to get a penalty. I thought somebody might hear me. But
well, I investigated this because I marched very purposefully toward their pits to find out who was guilty.
Sorry, Brian, safety car's out.
Yes, it is, and we'll come back to that moment. And I found it was the civilian driver who was guilty of deserving a penalty. So I'm afraid we have to lay it at the door of Tony Jardine. The trouble is he's not used to having limits, is he? They just bounce over, and he's not used to having company either. They just bounce over the territory wherever it is.
The 10th safety car period, and McInerney's been held up a little bit by the MGZR. Now, I didn't really want this to happen because this can make a big difference one way or the other, and it's not going to be down to drivers necessarily. It's just going to be the way that the cards fall.
And here comes number 3.
The safety car hasn't got out between them, so the gap is going to come down, so it's going to favour the Mosler marginally, but if it had been the other way around, it would have favoured the Ferrari more. So I suppose the lesser of two evils, if the safety car comes out, is the way it's falling.
Are we likely to see, Paul, the safety car wave through in order to pick up the leader? They won't bother with that. So in other words, you're stuck with whatever you get.
You're stuck with whatever you get, and I mean, this is why I'm a fan of double yellows. Double waved yellows, isolate the corner where the problem is, get the drivers to behave themselves properly, which these drivers have already demonstrated they can't, and then you can properly carry on.
Say what you mean, Paul.
Purposeful and to the point.
Robin,
just occasionally things get me angry.
Robin, the answer to your question, you won't be entirely surprised about this, is that the Aquila is now being driven.
Avast virus database has been updated.
Mr. Quick, Mr. Superfast. You think how much time that team has lost during the second half of this race so far? And they're still 14th, you know. Where would they have been without all these dramas? I know everybody's had dramas pretty much, but they lost an awful lot of time. It's just to still be 14th, it's not a bad effort, I don't think.
No, the problem is that every time John Martin has got in and driven the car, he's broken a drive shaft or... No, that's very unfair.
Now, guys, the from where you're placed... Oh, that's interesting. I think I saw the car which is causing this problem, but of course they immediately flashed through. I think it's in front of the new pits, parked up against the pit wall.
It could be the second time that's happened, yes, because we already had a car parked there. The problem with it is that that's one of the few areas that you rightly identified earlier on, Robin, where you can't easily get a snatch vehicle to, because you can't take it out from kind of over the pit wall, because the pit walls aren't constructed like that anymore. So you have to send something up the track to pick it up and tow it away, and quite rightly that does call for a safety car. So the organisers left with very little option than to introduce the safety car, but as I say, it does mean two things. One is that the gap is artificially changed as a result, and the other thing, of course, is that we get a period of time whilst the clock is ticking down towards 4:30 where the cars aren't actually able to race because they've got to queue up behind the safety car. Which, as I say, is the right and proper thing. It's the correct thing, but it means that you don't get time added on at the end of the race to make up for safety car periods.
As we've got a safety car period, I'm going to interject here and say a little ahead of time, 20 minutes ahead of time, I'm going to hand over to Ben Evans, who's going to take you to the checkered flag, and I'm going to start thinking about 4:30, which is when we will be doing the podium at the end of the race, and when, of course, we will be looking forward to the presentations which take place in the Jimmy Brown suite over in the old pits, above the old pits. So, Paul, you've done an absolutely brilliant job, and you've been ably supported by the rest of the team. Well, certainly Ben Evans here. So, Ben, it's with considerable pleasure that I present you with this on-off switch in the off position, I hope. And I take my leave of the main commentary box.
Excellent, well done. Yes, it's not the on-off switch you need to worry about, Ben. It's the other parts of the equipment. Anyway, so whilst Ben and Brian exchange pleasantries, we'll got the safety car out. This is the 10th appearance of the safety car. An hour and 45 minutes is the length of time that we've lost behind it in the whole of the race. Sounds a lot when you kind of add it all up together. Bear in mind this has been done by hand timing of the safety car being out, and sometimes I've been a bit more generous than others, but it does mean that we've lost a fair number of laps behind the safety car. Yes,
the car's cleared. Safety car will be in this lap.
Okay, it's just gone through, so we've got one more lap. Into the pits on that lap came the Lotus Evora, number 57, the car that we've been calling Court Oise's car, just to save us having to say Marcos and Lotus in the same mouthful. So number 57, this is the 4th placed car, which we put Hal Pruitt into at its last pit stop, and it now comes in for its 21st pit stop. And we'll try and get the driver change for you if it happens, and make a note of the laps. And as I say, this is kind of a frustrating time for people who are trying to make a chase and make up ground.
Yes, it is, because it's getting to that stage of the race. Good afternoon, Paul. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, Ben.
Yes.
It's the same T-shirt. You've repeated, or are you recycling T-shirts now?
There was an accident with a cup of coffee with the T-shirt.
You've been in the tumble dryer, haven't you?
I have been, yes. Yeah, well, it's very nicely poised, isn't it, for the remaining 4 hours and 20 minutes. Still plenty of opportunity for drama, in particular drawn to the battle for third and fourth position.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's battles all the way down. If you know for when you have time to look for them, they're all the way down the field. You know, with the battle at the front is tantalising, but it's a bit full of what might be's and what could be's for my liking. Anyway, the safety car is pulling off. We're going racing again, so let you get your eye in. You can talk them through. There's Mike McInerney being extremely good and waiting for the green flag to overtake the slow MG that he was behind. And Freddie Hetherington in the Mosler has a gaggle of cars as well that he, of course, has to wait for. And poor old John Martin is right at the back with the Aquila. But everybody, as far as I could see there, Ben, were being good boys.
I think they were. So it's probably when they head out towards Robin at Beckett's they're going to start misbehaving again, because after that penalty for Bob Berridge that seems so long ago in the early stages of the race yesterday afternoon, since then everybody's been fairly circumspect. As I say that, we do have the Toyota MR2, which launches itself past the smart car well before the start and finish line.
There was the queue was kind of in 3 blocks, and in the third block there was also a little indiscretion, I thought, going onto the Wellington Straight, where one of the bigger cars sort of got fed up with being stuck behind car 95. So we shall see. We shall see whether these things are picked up. Most things have been picked up, I have to say. It's been, I think, a very successful race as far as policing is concerned. I don't think a frightening amount has gone unnoticed.
No, exactly, and it's getting to that stage of the race where the drivers just have to keep their concentration, because although it feels like we're moving towards the home stretch, we've still got effectively 2 Singapore Grand Prix to go between now and the checker flag.
Except for this is daylight and those aren't.
And it's probably warmer here at Silverstone today. Well, not quite, but it is a lovely afternoon to enjoy motor racing.
The Lotus Evora, having been in the pits, gets the advantage that it comes through in glorious isolation, and so can take the green flag without having to accelerate, because it was already going at full tilt. So that's going to help it a little bit. Good timing of its pit stop, enabling it to get out before it caught up with the tail of the train. Which is always a worry about the safety car situation, because you get cars going at full speed when the safety car is out. But anyway, the leaders are in the beginning group of the cars that are currently coming through Luffield, and that will have been a quicker lap, I fancy, by Hetherington because of the need. Maybe not, actually. There goes Mike McInerney, and where is Freddie? Here he comes now out of Luffield, and I fancy that's a much quicker lap at the end of it from McInerney than it was from Hetherington. Yes, it was. It was quite a slow lap from Hetherington there. I wonder if he got caught up in some other traffic somewhere, because he wasn't that far behind at the beginning of the lap, and from then on he didn't have yellow flags. It was all green flag motoring, Ben.
Yeah, that's a slightly strange lap, isn't it, there from Freddie Hetherington, but he's still got the lead of the race in that the Top Cats Mosler, which has really just run metronomically throughout the race. The McInerney Ferrari, though, I still wouldn't discount that car just yet, because Moslers, dare I say it, have had a track record of the odd drama or two over the course of the history of the Britcar 24 Hours. Although they are well positioned, this is still turning into an excellent race for Top Cats, isn't it? Because they've got all 3 cars in the top 8 positions.
Yes, I think that's one of the things that Chris was discovering, was quite how busy it is down there with all the pit stops and such like that have to be going on with. Just skipping back through the record of the race for the Top Cats Mosler, I think the only hiccup was they had a bit of damage on the car at about 9:45 last night. It was only a suggestion of damage, it wasn't definite, and they had a stop and go penalty. But apart from that, you're absolutely right, Ben. They've had a clean run to this stage of the race.
Because one issue that they had was that the car was, as it was going towards an empty tank, having fuel feed pickup issues, but that's not really affecting them at all in terms of stint length or performance.
No, absolutely. I mean, the stint lengths aren't so long, actually, in comparison to the Ferrari. The length of the stints has been quite a bit shorter. That's an interesting comparison to make, actually, if I slip over to here. Yeah, virtually every stint. There we are. Yes, earlier in the race, but in general, certainly we've had a 40 lap stint from the Ferrari, a 39 lap stint from the Ferrari, whereas the maximum we've had from the Mosler has been 31 laps. So it's quite a big difference, isn't it? That is affecting them, but that might yet end up being something significant. So yes, the Mosler is only getting a maximum of 31 laps from a stint, whereas the Ferrari has had a 40 lap.
Another slow-ish lap from the lead car. Another nice quick one from the Ferrari in second, and an even quicker one from the Aquila, still running in 14th place. He did a 2:10 that time round. The Orient Express into the pits.
It is also coming up on the time screen. Now, this could be interesting. The team manager of number 57, which is the Marcos Racing Lotus Vora, has been summoned to race control, and they've just been in the pits. So whether that is too short a pit stop, pit lane speeding, but that could knock them back a bit.
Or too much speed whilst the safety car was still out, because I was biting my tongue as I was saying it, because I shouldn't have been. But yeah, we'll see what happens. It's only a discussion with race control, and that means nothing for the moment.
The army's up before the beak as well. Oh dear.
That's that Jardine chappie.
Yeah, I think, let's face it.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it's just really the honour of getting to meet Bernard Cottrell, isn't it, that these teams are doing it for. So that could potentially be an issue. Now, going back to that Top Cat's Mosler point, the leading car, Robin, from what Paul was saying about having run those markedly shorter stints, I just wonder whether they're beginning to, with 4 laps in hand, think, well, actually, if we run at a slightly diminished pace, we will be able to just save ourselves maybe an extra pit stop between now and the end of the race, or at least not be as marginal with the fuel, and therefore not having to risk a late race splash and dash.
Well, it's been said many times, and certainly obviously more today than yesterday, because we're thinking very much about getting to 4:30 now, and I think is part of the thing, is that every driver gets tempted at certain stages into having a little bit of a race, but then they have to rein themselves back. One of the joys of this form of racing is the fact that everybody, and that just includes the drivers, the teams, everybody involved in this, wants to see as many cars running at 4:30 as possible. And you don't do that by thrashing the kit to within an inch of its life. You still got to thrash the kit, I believe, as Henry was saying earlier, Henry Fletcher, he wants to, you can't help but wanting to go as quick as possible, but there are ways and means.
Now, this is it was the Runnymede Mosler, wasn't it, that won the 2009 Britcar 500 race, which is an amalgamation of the Top Cats team. Andrew Beaumont, who I don't think has appeared in the car,
correct,
but should have done, was one of the drivers that night. So this is a car with a pedigree and a track record. Very glad to see that the Thorney Motorsport car has appeared, number 60. Unfortunately for them, I don't think they're likely to be classified because they are well down in terms of laps, 285 off the leads. That unfortunately is going to put them out of the bubble for classification. News from the pit lane.
Yeah, Ben, I'm down at Top Cats with Neil Huggins. Neil, huge disappointment. You've been hit, have you?
Yeah, we did a driver change, and as I'm going through maggots, just straight out of the pits, production car, thought he'd moved over to let me through, and obviously he hadn't, so he sideswiped me. It was a pretty square on hit. I pitted straight away because the front geometry was deranged, which they're fixed, put a new upright on, and then the truck in for a couple more laps, and then suddenly I lost the drive down the back end, so the accident has obviously damaged the diff that side. So thanks very much.
Plus you've had a misfire to deal with for most of the race as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I was in bed when that happened. They found a problem with a switch that was shorting out, so they took a couple of attempts to sort that out. They put new ignition packs on it, and they finally said that's fine. The car is good. It's just what we don't need at this late stage in the race.
It's all in. Bad luck, Neil. Thanks for your time, though.
We'll get it fixed and we're back out there. Just hope it's damage limitation.
All right, cheers, Neil. Thanks very much for telling us what happened there. So that's the 27 Top Cats Marcus Mantis, which was right up there in the top 5, leading its class and having a good run. The other Top Cats car that came in, which is also going very well indeed, the Marcus Mantis with the Japanese drivers. Just to let you know that the driver that got out in that most recent pit stop was Yasushi Kikuchi, and the driver that has just got in is Masashi Kakiuchi.
Oh, I thought as much. The Evora, oh dear, they got a stop-go.
And it was for the incorrect pit stop, whereas the military car, it's speeding in the pit lane that they've got their stop-go. So the 57 car, the Evora, it's stop and go and 16 seconds for an incorrect pit stop, and the 86 car for the pit lane speeding, it's 6 seconds in the pit lane. Now substantively, that's not going to cost the number 4 Evora any places, because they're well clear of Kevin Clark's Intersports crew.
Trouble is, though, they've regularly been getting within 1 lap of the Nick Mee car, 49, and they're now dropping to 2 laps. That's it. These little things are going to add up and cost them.
Yeah, it's the Lotus has got its eyes ahead of it rather than looking behind it, isn't it? And having to pay penalties is playing mayhem with that plan. So all good news for the Aston Martin car, the Nick Mee crew, number 49, because that makes a little more secure, if it is secure, their third place, their current position, and of course as Class 3, beg your pardon, leaders.
Yes, so
both of them do pit stops fairly shortly, as far as I remember, as well.
And that Nicholas Mee racing Aston Martin has been in the top 3 or 4 positions now for the best part of 12 hours, hasn't it? It really, as we saw some of the Class 1 cars dropping away, it's just moved up through the pack and has, I think, benefited just looking at, because that Aston Martin has had 16 pit stops in comparison to the Evora, which has had 22. And given that the gap between them is less than the pit stop, there's an awful lot in that.
Yeah, that 15 to 20 minutes, I think, for the Aston Martin before it comes in for its next pit stop. And I think it will come in before the Lotus. Yes, it definitely will come in before the Lotus, because, of course, the Lotus has just taken on extra fuel, hasn't it? So so it will give a chance back to the Evora. But whether it'll be able to take that chance or not, I'm not quite sure.
It looks like that Lotus Evora 57 has just been in to serve a stop go, but nobody was ready for it in terms of officialdom, so it came in and sort of shrugged its shoulders, waited for a while, and then has just gone back out again. So the team manager's just come down to have a chat with the officials to make sure it doesn't get caught out by that, because he came in and did what he should have, but there was nobody to sort of oversee it from that point of view. Just to let you know that the reason I went at that end of the pit lane before all the Top Cats drama in the first place was to find out who was in that car, and it's Dick Freebird, the Dutch driver, in car 57 right now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, so it will now be a protest from the Marcos Racing Evora squad to the race officials for incorrect administration of a stop-go penalty.
Yes, Bernie Cotterill will have to go to their team manager and get down his bendy knees, I think.
Yes, car 57 summons race director to garage.
Well, I wait for that message.
I think Bernie just needs to take a barrel of beer and he'll be fine. There goes Mike McInerney again. He's acquitting himself very well. It was a slow start to the stint. I can still say that. And he's now, though, settled into a nice rhythm. And he's lapping consistently more quickly than the Top Cats Mosler. Which, what do you think, Robin? I have the impression that it's also a little bit less consistent than the Ferrari. It's dropping away, but it's doing so in an inconsistent fashion. He sometimes does quick laps, sometimes doesn't.
Yes, and I know I take your point about the difference between the American sound, etc., but I just don't. It's it's doing lap times. It just doesn't sound quite sort of au point, the number 3. It's just a little bit growly at this stage. So I get it from both directions. It comes behind me as they run down towards Beckett's, and then it runs in front of me. And even when it's on its own, not in traffic, there's a slightly rough edge to it, I think.
I agree with you as it came past just then, and that lap again is slower, 2 minutes 21.9 on a lap where that car was relatively traffic free. It wasn't the sort of lap with traffic that would have put it that far off the pace.
Yeah.
So I will deploy my non-existent mechanical skills to have a listen once more next time it comes through.
And I note in passing, and thank you to the timekeepers for noticing it as well, that best lap has now been corrected on the number 3 car, hasn't it? Because it was showing a different best lap, but they've now ferreted that one out. So, well, I must say, good performance. Credited everybody who's been doing good performances. Well, the timekeepers did a good service as well. I don't think we've had any proper hiccups from that system at all this weekend. The only hiccups have been caused by faulty transponders. So John Martin comes out of Woodcote in the much delayed Aquila. Who was it who was saying if that car hadn't had any problems, it would have won the race by now, and they'd be packing it up into the transporter and going home having already done the 24 hours. It's certainly the quickest thing out there, but I mean, in a way, it's been good that it hasn't run away at the front of the field. It's been unfortunate that the balance of its problems hasn't quite matched its performance advantage, because the problems it's experienced have been more than it's been able to pull back. 61 laps it's fallen behind, and in an hour you can probably do about 30 laps, so it's 2 hours behind, I would say.
Yes, it's a shame. I'd like to see a couple. Investors, we've got a car that's gone off, and it could be the McInerney Ferrari that's gone off at Brooklands there. It looked suspiciously Ferrari-shaped, and it's outbraked itself. It's gone into the tyre barrier just at Brooklands, kicking up the dust. If you're in the grandstand at Woodcote, you can see the scene of the incident, and I have to say, I think that was potentially the Ferrari.
Well, we'll keep an eye out and wait for a black Mosler shape to come into sight. And if it does, then you are absolutely right, well spotted, because you must have had that for a split second only. I saw the cloud of dust come up, but I didn't see the car.
The rolling screen is coming around to that way now. We're coming down the Wellington Straight with it. I wonder if it'll be on the camera angle.
And yeah, we've got lots of smoke there. Chris has got some news from the pit lane for us.
Yeah, down here with Sarah Bennett Baggs, the number 63 BMW, which has had all sorts of nightmares, I'm afraid, because Sarah, a really good driver lineup, and you would have been coming into this weekend, been expecting and hoping for a really good result, I suspect.
We would have been, yeah. We're on engine change number 3. And we've had all sorts of pickup and just endless little gremlins, basically, problems. So it's been a fun night.
The latest of which is warped brake discs and lots of vibration, you were telling me.
Yep, Jensen's just come in with a massive vibration. It's sort of rattling his eyeballs, but we've cleaned up the tyres and sent him back out and told him to get on with it, basically.
How on earth do you keep motivating yourself? I mean, you had trouble pretty much since the start of the race. How do you keep firing yourself up to get out there and do your best?
We have an amazing bunch of guys here that have just relentlessly want to get us back out there. Got some really good talent, and you know, when it looked like it was all coming to an end, the second engine failure, the engine was back out, even though we didn't have a plan B. So we've just come up with solution after solution. They've been amazing.
Yeah, they're just, I mean, there's a real stubbornness about these mechanics and teams, isn't there? I mean, all common sense is, oh, yeah, we're not going to finish anywhere, let's just pack up and go home. But they won't give up, they've got to see that flag, haven't they?
They're not going to let it die, this car. It's going to be pushed over the line if it has to, basically. So, yeah, they're keeping us going.
So you've got one more going in a tooth-shattering car, by the sounds of it.
Hopefully it won't be that bad. But, yeah, no, one more go for all of us. Hopefully we'll make it to the end now.
Despite the fact you've had a nightmare, will you be back? We hope to be back for the Britcar 24. It's a unique event, isn't it?
Oh, definitely, yeah. I'm sure we'll be back again.
All right, Sarah, thanks very much for your time. Thanks very much. Good luck for later on. Yeah, that car, that
Safety
team
car.
should have been right up there on paper, but just engine after engine has gone, all sorts of problems. And anyway, they're going to finish the race.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chris. I was in error when I said it was the Ferrari that had gone off, but it is a car that's gone off quite heavily at Brooklands, and it has brought out the safety car. Apologies if I got everybody jumping when I said it was number 2 Ferrari. It was sport. You know, it's a very good-looking car. It's gone off. It's the Mosler that's gone off.
It's well buried in that tyre wall,
and it's the number 3 car, isn't it?
Yep, and that was extinguishing rather than smoke. I think they probably had a little fire at the rear end, and but that in a car that shape and that design is a long way under the tyres. The reason for the safety car, I would guess, is that apart from the low loader they've sent around the outside, they've had to send one of the chugger forklift things from, in fact, just down below me, and that's gone tootling around down Wellington and under the bridge, because that is going to take a big old. It's going to be plucked from there like a bad old tooth.
It is that was a hefty impact. I have to say, the car really went flying in. So it's the number 3 car, the car that was in the lead of the race, the Top Cats Racing Mosler, that is out and into the barriers here at Brooklands. So the race turned on its head once more. And I have to say, Paul, of all the things that I would have expected to see the car just darting off like that, I find it hard to believe that was driver error from Freddie Hetherington.
Well, unless there was a slower car in the way, because we didn't see, well, I didn't see it at all. I just saw the cloud of smoke. But obviously, without seeing the car coming into the corner and the approach to the braking area, he might have had a touch from a slower car, or he might have just misjudged his braking distance in overtaking a slower car, wanting to get past the slower car before they got to the tight left-hander at Brooklands. So, it could have been that, or it could have been a mechanical breakage. Absolutely right. And
the only odd thing, Paul, is that the angle of the dangle of that car in the tyre wall, it's so square on that, as you say, all things are possible, and there's no point second guessing really, but that is so at right angles, it's so straight on that it looks more like a breakage than just the result of an error.
Yeah, exactly. They had a very good view of it in the BRDC suite. But I suspect they were all sitting down to their Sunday lunch.
In fact, I've got a shot. They had a shot there. They're pulling a car out from under the tyres now. Had a shot there of the tyre tracks coming off the corner and through, a long way through that big gravel trap, and they are absolutely straight as a die.
That reads breakage to me, Robin, because I saw the same picture as you, and it is very strange to see a car just go so directly and square off the circuit. Well, the car is being dragged out of the tyre barrier, which means I can only presume that Freddie Hetherington is out of the car, because that'd be the number 1 precaution, was to make sure that he was okay before they set about moving the car. Given that the car has been moved, the safety car period actually shouldn't last too much longer, because the car is being dragged somewhat unceremoniously.
Depending what they have to do with that tyre barrier, because the tyre barrier has been fairly heavily shifted, and they may want to re-secure the whole of the tyre barrier. So I do agree, having done what they've done most of what's needed, but the tyre barrier may need to be
reset.
Set up, yeah.
Yeah, so a great shame there. We are now within the 4 hours to go margins here, and I would run down the classification, except the car that's still showing as being leader of the race is the car that has prompted the safety car, which is the, if not retired from the race, the certainly to be incredibly delayed Top Cats Racing Mosler. It did go in at quite some speed, so I'd be quite surprised they haven't done a fair amount of damage to the front of that car. So effectively the lead car in the race has now become the number 2 Michael McInerney Eclipse Ferrari 430, with then into second place the Nicholas Mee Racing Aston Martin. Up into third therefore has come the Marcos Racing number 57 car, the Lotus Evora. In fourth place is the Intersport squad number 68, and then up into fifth place is the Top Cats Japanese squad number 53. Sixth place is number 66, the Paul Winter Dorset Sports Porsche. In seventh place we've got the 89 Mark Griffiths car, and that actually as well leads Class 4. In eighth place it's the Elise, number 46 Pete Story, and then in ninth is the number 27 Top Cats Racing car, the one we just heard about having had that incident earlier on. I mean, that's just rotten luck as well for the Top Cat squad, isn't it? Having run so well for 20 hours, 2 of their cars to be involved in incidents within 20 minutes of each other.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's what this 24-hour business is all about, isn't it? It comes up and bites you when you're just not expecting it. I have to say, I've been looking at the damage there. The car is now clear of the circuit. It'll be back in its pit garage in no time at all. The one I'm trying to, you understand, I'm looking for positives here out of the situation for them. Because of the angle of the front of that car, which is pretty low and swoopy, it had actually dug beneath the tyre wall. The good side of that, I have to say, is as long as the pedal box and all those things up the front end haven't been interfered with, because it was so straight on, it may be that got away with relatively light damage. I noticed as they tugged it out of there, the tyres sprung back. Now there is a vast 6 or 7 deep band of tyres there, but it is banded with conveyor belting. Now normally speaking, that keeps the integrity of a tyre wall pretty well together. So this is all, you understand, hoping that this isn't going to be too long a stoppage.
Well, I think the other thing as well to mention, Robin, is that if that car is repairable, they've got a 15-lap advantage. So the best part of probably 45 minutes racing and more behind the safety car before they'd be overhauled by the Nicholas Mee Racing Aston Martin. Now, I have to say, in terms of looking for positives, unless Chris Hartley's got a ready-to-go Mo's the front suspension assembly in his boot of his car, I think it's going to be a fairly lengthy stop for them. But if they are able to effect repairs, there is the outside hope still. If they can get that car back on track within an hour, I would venture that they could just still sneak a podium. But it would be a very, very big ask from the Top Cat squad to turn that around.
Now, they're actually looking at the tyre wall now. They've got the officials out there. I'm fairly certain that's not too sad, the damage down there, but they may well be another couple of laps before they are satisfied.
Yes, of course, as ever, the priority is absolutely safety, and really the work to rebuild that tyre wall will take as long as it takes for the officials here at the meeting to be entirely satisfied that that tyre wall is replaced to its original configuration, offers the same stopping power.
Exactly. I mean, the watchword of everything in racing to do with any sort of results from any sort of incident is, what happens if somebody makes exactly the same mistake a lap later? You know, you've got to return all your safety devices and safety areas. You've got to return them to best condition as soon as possible. Down in the pits.
Yeah, I've just been down at Top Cats, which, I mean, just a real body blow for the team. As you say, we've done brilliantly well for 4/5 of the race. Chatted with Julian Draper. They've not heard from Freddie, so they're unaware exactly as to what's going on. So they haven't had any communication from him, so they don't know what caused the car to go off, and they'll find out when he gets back. But have you? Is Freddie out the car now? Can you see from there?
We didn't actually. It's a rolling shot, and it wasn't actually lingering on the car at the moment when he got out. But I must say, when I first saw the car go in, I was full of worry. The fact that they got it out so quickly and tugged it away lessens that worry. But no, we haven't seen hide nor hair of him.
No, I mean, we've got a reasonably good view of the incident here, Chris, from the box here at Woodcote. Didn't see Freddie hop out of the car, but as Robin was saying, the fact that JCB moved in very quickly and just yanked the car out from the barriers, for want of a better word, I think would suggest that hopefully there wasn't too much concern there. We've now got a JCB in place setting about rebuilding the tyre wall, so wretched luck for the Top Cats squad. I'm sure that we'll hear in due course more information as to exactly what the cause of the incident was. So I think I'm the bogey commentator here for safety cars, because Brian's just had 2 possibly that have been scrambled under his watch, and I've had the rest of them, including this, which is on course possibly to be the second longest in the race, although the JCB has removed itself from its original position, so we're certainly going to get one more lap behind the safety car, but that could well be the last one unless some new equipment is going to appear on the scene to affect further works on the tyres. As out of Luffield now comes the queue of cars behind the safety car, and officially the Michael McInerney Eclipse Ferrari has now moved in to the lead of the race. The Top Cats Moser is going to continue showing as being in second position for quite some time now, because the Nicholas Mee Racing is still 14 laps back in terms of laps completed. So
I would guess if Chris is down there, it can't be long before that Moser's back in the garage, because it's quite a short run from the behind the Brooklands grandstand to where their pit garage is, right at the beginning of the pit lane.
We'll find out shortly. I think that's going to partly depend on whether the car can actually be towed along, or whether it needs to be loaded up onto the rear of a flatbed truck. The safety car is going to be in on this lap, as we hoped it might be. So we've got a somewhat frantic queue of cars looking to chase back to the safety car here, and dare I say it, some of those angles through Brooklands weren't entirely becoming of behaviour behind a safety car from a couple of those drivers.
The car 54, where are you? Well, it's with me. If their team have lost it, the Clint Barwell BMW M3 is about to get a tug back, so they've had problems. Driver's still in the car, but it should be just a few minutes. It'll be back behind the pits.
Okay, they've had one of those races, haven't they? Because they caused a safety car back during the night when it went off at Luffield, and all sorts of dramas for them, and that has put them well outside the leaderboard. They're currently in 24th position, and are going to be slipping further back because they're about to be passed by the military Mazda 86, which is going to move up into 24th on this occasion as the Clint Barwell car has recovered back to the garage area.
I think that'll be their highest position of the race for the Army. I don't remember them above 25.
I agree. I'm sure that if we've got that wrong, somebody will present themselves very quickly to correct us. But yes, I agree, Robin. And also, it doesn't. A top 20 finish here is not beyond the realms of possibility, pending dramas for other runners. The challenge is going to be, though, that the differential in terms of laps between the cars in the top 20, or really the top 19, and then the rest of them, there's a 10-lap gap between the Scuderia Vittoria Porsche in 19th place, number 64, then Dominic Malone, number 90 car, and then after that we've got another group of cars. So it's going to require somebody to retire and then not run for, or go into pit lane and be in there for 12 or so laps to really give some of these cars the opportunity to move back up into the top 20.
Our lead car is about probably about 12th in the queue, behind the course car. So whatever happens when we get back up to running, he's got a bit of overtaking to do. I suppose that the team's now up and down the pit lane with this slightly longer course car intervention. We'll be looking at refueling strategies, changeovers and all the rest of it, because at this stage in proceedings, Ben, all these interruptions really do, I know they do over the whole race, but particularly critical as we approach, just say, 3 3/4 hours to run of the race. They can really change strategies and make a difference.
Couldn't agree more, Robin, because we were talking a lot throughout the night, particularly Paul was, about how some of the teams, whenever the safety car came out, were just saying, oh, right, you can come in and put in 25 litres of fuel with the car without losing a lap, and we're just altering the strategy really because it was possible to do so. Well, now they're within sight of the finish, it becomes much more real actually to say, well, the car is using this many litres per lap, there's this much fuel in there, and therefore we need to make this number of pit stops between now and the end of the race. From
experience, what often tends to happen as well is this is a time when they start looking a little bit more carefully at who the opposition is and where the opposition is. And, well, to be quite frank, if I was running the Eclipse Racing Ferrari, I'd be thinking, okay, let's slow everything down now, let's take everything easy, let's just bring it in for fuel when we need to, let's not try and do anything clever, because by doing something clever you only end up by out-foxing yourself and out-fumbling yourself. So let's just carry on doing what we've been doing all race. We've got into a certain routine of these things, and then you just kind of, you work on autopilot, which is what you've been doing for the whole race. If you're in a battle, as there are a couple down the list, then you start tailoring what you're doing to try and just get ahead of the car that you're in a battle with, and everything sort of focuses on that objective. But it becomes one of the two things. You either focus in on your competition and say, right, what are we going to do to beat that car, or you just focus in on making sure that you secure the position that you're in from any, from any possible onslaught, from any possible misfortune.
We've got 2 further invitations for a chat in race control for the race leading number 2 car and also the Marcos Racing Evora, and I just wonder whether the summons for the 57 car is for that pit stop that Chris Hartley saw.
Certainly, I pricked my ears up in the middle of that safety car period because there was another official vehicle on the circuit. I don't know if you noticed it, but there was another official vehicle on the circuit which was going out to, I suspect, look at the damage to the barrier. And a big queue of cars built up behind it. Now, as soon as the queue of cars that was behind it was released, that included the race-leading Ferrari, shot away as if the race had started, and I was confused. I thought, oh, the safety car has gone in. Then I realised it wasn't a safety car, it was just an official car. The same thing happened as we saw earlier on in the race, where 2 groups had formed, and the second group wasn't weighed past, and I suspect that warning is going to be for going too fast whilst the safety car is out, because you still need to keep a reasonable speed and be prepared to stop should the need arise if the yellow flag is out wherever it happens to be out, and that's all around the circuit if the safety car's out.
Well, into the pit lane we have got the 3rd place car, the number 49 Nicholas Mee Racing Aston Martin, and also the 5th place car, the Intersports BMW.
Yes, it's interesting, isn't it? Most, but not all, I think, but most of the team manager to race control situations have been followed by a penalty of some sort. And just as you were saying, Paul, over what they'll be thinking in the Ferrari camp at the moment. They've got the lead. Their closest rival has had those problems. But of course, the other factor that they can't yet make a decision about anything because they don't know how quickly, if at all, that Mosler could be turned around and be brought back out to play again. It may just be that it, is not going to be too long in the pits.
Yes, although they've now eked out a four-lap advantage, so time is ticking away a little bit in that respect for the Mosler, but almost for the racing Ferrari now. It's actually, to an extent, a glorified test session for them. They've just got to treat this as 3 hours and 40 minutes of running at a pace to which they dictate themselves, because if they do that, then they're very well positioned to claim the victory.
Exactly. If everything hangs together, and of course that's the one thing no team can take for granted in a race of this sort.
Well, yes, as we have seen, amply demonstrated in the last half an hour or so.
Yes, it must have been dangerously cosy for a good few laps for, unfortunately, for the Top Cat Racing Mosler, but now they're staring down the barrel. They're 5 laps adrift of the number 2 Ferrari at the moment.
Yes, so well, I'm sure that we'll hear about the condition of that car as soon as it arrives back in the garage.
We've still got that super battle for the lead in their class 3, I think, between 3rd place 49, 4th place 57, just a lap between them, and the 57 car lapping, 15 seconds? Well, keep an eye on that. It's consistently been lapping quicker than the Aston.
Yeah, I think the problem, though, is that Evora's had more penalties than Manchester United at Old Trafford, because it really does seem to have been going to and from race control for various
that'll be more penalties in the extra 13 minutes at the end of the match.
Quite, yes. Yes, if Manchester United had a racing car, it'd be a 24.5-hour race for that car. So that is the cloud hanging over them, because they have had 5 more pit stops than the Nicholas Mee Racing Aston Martin, and that has really cost them, although the Nicholas Mee car has had a couple of slightly longer pit stops. But I agree with you, Robin, if that Evora can actually run at its true pace for the remainder of the race, then given the fact that it's considerably quicker lap on lap than the Aston Martin, you'd imagine it will be a matter of time for it gets itself onto the lead lap and of that fight for 3rd place and the fight for the Class 3 lead, and then the chase well and truly is on.
It's interesting, isn't it? I love these things. It's just, I know it's just one of these little utterly coincidental things, but in car 49, in third place, we have a couple of Dutch drivers and an American. And in car 57, which is in fourth place, the two cars we're talking about, they have a couple of Dutch drivers and a couple of Americans. How interesting. Complete chance.
Yes, it's slightly strange, isn't it, that one of the more multinational driver lineups that we've got, or two of them, are busy racing with each other, and then the all-Japanese squad are still making very good progress as well in sixth position. You can hear the noise of the pit lane, so maybe Chris has got some news for us. In fact, no, I think it's Robin.
No, sorry, I was just seeing that at this very moment, that Marcus is into the pits, number 57 in fourth place.
It is, and that's for a stop-and-go penalty, plus 8 seconds for pit lane speeding.
You see, this is, they got to, everyone has to iron the, I mean, you know, you don't want them ever in the race, but really at this stage of proceedings, when you do stand a chance of nibbling back a position, and in their case, the win in their class, you really...
Just more time to try and claw back, and with every pit stop like that, it just raises the bar even harder to try and close that gap down.
Yep, when you add the slowing down for the stop and the speeding up from the stop, I mean, it's just, you think of the laps it takes to gain back that amount of time. Still, now they're in and serving.
Although I don't know the Dutch, or I don't believe it, but I suspect that that's probably what they'll be saying, given that there was nobody to administer the previous stop-go penalty, which seems to have gone by okay, but then they managed to get done for pit lane speeding on the way out from it. so yes.
You don't think that's, if you can't get them with one thing, you get them with another? No, I don't think so. But, well, it is a shame, but all these things are part and parcel of these amazing races. The great thing about 24 hours and 57 starters is you end up with an awful lot more than 57 stories.
Yeah, I think on the 57, I was going to suggest that it shouldn't be coming into the pits until after the 49 came into the pits, but I was basing that on fuel consumption figures rather than on having to serve penalties. So having served that penalty, we now should have the 49 car as the next pit caller out of that little group, which I was hoping might kind of hand the advantage back to the Lotus Evora, not because I've got any particular association with that car, but just to liven up that battle for third place overall and first in the class.
Is the Aston just out from the pits, actually, Paul? Because he's just done a lap of 4:39.
Number 49, yes, he is just out of the pits.
Yes, so...
Yes, going to have to wait until, yeah, there it goes
12:47 he came out of the pits.
Yeah, going to have to wait until they both complete the lap to get the real gap between them. It's showing us one lap again, but that's either one of your, that's one of Paul's, a lap and a fat bit, or 2 laps and a thin bit, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lap and a fat bit, I think. It's probably 1 3/4 laps, the gap between them, and we'll find out on this occasion just what the relative pace of these two cars is, with still just over 3.5 hours left on the clock. So the chase well and truly on, but realistically now the Lotus is going to have to run without any further problems and be closing in at several seconds a lap to get on terms with that Aston Martin.
Quite, I tell you what, that Aquila has just gone through here. He's got no traffic to speak of behind or in front, and he's gone through here absolutely steaming along. What did he do? He did a 2:11 last time. It has such tidy pace, that car. That is a great. That is essentially a banana-coloured what if, isn't it?
Love to see a few more of them on the grid for next year's race. 5 or 6 of those ahead of the field would give us something of a spectacle, wouldn't it?
I'd like to be them. Have their. I'd like to be the manufacturer of their drive shafts, if that were the case.
Yes, you don't necessarily need 5 or 6 of them, but adding to their number is the old Tom Walkinshaw theory about how to win Le Mans. You just keep on adding numbers of cars until you get enough so that one of them will get to the flag. Yeah, I mean that would improve its chances no end if they even just had 2 of them.
Can hear the clank of tools, which means Chris may have something for us from the pit lane.
Yeah, it's at Top Cats. It's the Marcus, which is about to go back out, and Neil Huggins is going to get back in that one. We heard from him, and all the dramas that car had. The diff has been replaced, and the car is going to rejoin. And the good news, the former race leading car, the other Top Cats car, the Mosler, isn't back. Apparently he's down at scrutineering as it stands, but the good news is that the team has now heard from Freddie Hetherington. They don't know why he went off yet, but they do know that Freddie is absolutely fine.
Excellent. That's good to hear. I guess we'll find out very shortly, Paul and Robin, whether or not it was driver error, depending on whether Freddie actually reappears in the garage between now and the end of the race. Because I suspect if it was mechanical, he'll probably put in an appearance. If it was his mistake, he
could be shopping in Asda in Toaster or something. Yes.
He might just forget that he needed to set the video for something this afternoon.
Yes, he'll be down in Brackley at the antiques market probably.
Yes.
But quite right, of course. As always with these things, they always we don't like anything necessarily that feels like it spoils our fun, but absolutely correct that scrutineers are having a good look at that car, because that, whatever happened, was a quick front-end impact. So they'll be making absolutely certain that's okay.
Well, there is a Mosler for sale in the back of the programme, so should they need a replacement, I'm not sure.
I was just going to say,
car swaps are.
Maybe it's that car, never raced or rallied. Let's have a look.
You can be sure that Martin's already down there with his notepad out, taking orders.
Yes.
But no, it's nice, talking of what might have been, so the Aquila going around yet again. It's nice that it is out there, because I must admit I did have my fears after we had the conversation with Bob Berridge in the very early hours, not the very early hours, but in the early morning this morning when it was just daylight, that we wouldn't be seeing the yellow car out again, but it has been out there, and it's at least entertaining and still circulating, albeit a long way back down the field.
And I think, Paul, also it's a good opportunity because that really does point it up to the generally unsung heroes. They're not unsung by us, but of course we never know their names necessarily, but the huge amounts of pit crew down in those garages that, yes, we know the stories from the drivers we speak to, we have the drivers' names, but my goodness me, there's a stack of guys and girls down there in the pit garages that by the end of a 24-hour race know they've been in a fight, and an awful lot of work has been going in, and they don't often get individual praise, because I suppose really simply because they are anonymous, there are too many of them, but what a wonderful job they do.
That's slightly odd. We've got the race leader in, and a notification on our timing screen saying the pit lane exit has been closed. So the race leading Ferrari is in. Paul will be able to tell us whether or not that is on schedule, but the way things stand, they may be delayed getting back out into the race.
Yes, why the pit lane exit should be closed, I have no idea at all, unless it's because they're just moving the Mosler through the pit lane exit gate, and they don't want anybody coming out whilst they're moving the Mosler back through the gate. The stint from Mike McInerney, 32 laps. That compares to the 39 that Phil Keane did. In terms of time, well, it was an hour and how many is that? 30, 40. It was just over an hour. Maths is not my strong point at this time in the morning. Hour and 21 minutes.
Paul, I think you were 99% correct. The 1% was the Mosler. There is a car that's gone off. Can't identify it because I'm looking at it through a haze of wire. But a car's gone off on the rise just on the exit of Copse Corner. It's been hooked up by a tow truck, and that is being towed the wrong way, as it were. The only way they can get it in, the wrong way down the pit lane. So that, you're quite right, that's what's happening. It's just a different car.
I just thought it was Chris taking drastic action to make sure he got his interviews.
Could be. Yes. You're not allowed out unless you speak to me.
Precisely.
All I can tell you, unfortunately, is it was a car with a lid on and it was black. But that's the only bit I can see.
Right, we will delve into that.
They're always Genettas, aren't they? Those ones.
It looks slightly more dare I say, slightly more boxy than a Ginetta. So
would it be BMW shaped? There's a lot of black BMWs.
There is a possibility that you were correct in your assumption. It could be one of those. My goodness me, that Aquila. Every so often, everyone, I'm just admiring everyone pottering around and doing their thing, and I'm so desperate that all these guys and girls now get these cars to the end of this race, and then the Aquila appears as though it's in a completely different race, flying along.
I'm right at the end of the pit lane, by the pit lane exit, and I think it's been clear now. The red lights have just gone off and turned to green. So I think the reason they would have held the pit lane exit was because of that incident at Copse Corner and the recovery vehicle on track. That's now moved out of the way. So the Ferrari, I don't think will get held up as the race leader goes back out onto circuit straight away.
Now, was there a driver change, Chris? You knew I was going to ask you that, didn't you?
Yeah. I just told you where I was, didn't I? Right at the other end of the pit lane. I don't think so. That looks like Michael's helmet again. It's very difficult to tell because Michael and Sean have quite similar helmets. So I will
go on, have a little
run
walk.
back down. Yeah, I'll have a little walk.
No, don't run. You've got to take it easy.
I can't run anymore.
If you plug with McInerney, you're more than likely right, Chris. So we'll find out.
Yes, it will be a McInerney. It's the question of whether it's S or M.
I know. I'm guessing that stage of the afternoon, isn't it? They've completed 490 laps of the race now. In 6 laps' time, we're going to see Nicholas Mee racing Aston Martin, which will then move up formally into second position because the Top Cats Racing Moser, I think we can presume we won't see, if we do see it, we won't see it challenging for the elevated positions because all the while the car's in scrutineering, it can't be worked on. And so effectively the mechanics' opportunity to actually begin to assess what can be repaired hasn't even started. Team managers of cars 54 and 84 to race control. 84 is the Red Camel Racing Squad and 54 is Clint Bardwell's team again.
Some of these team managers might as well just buy an armchair up in race control. I mean, they seem to be in and out like they caught their braces on the door.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some fairly strong radio conversations, aren't there, between some team managers and drivers?
Just
watch. Sorry.
Yeah, carry on.
I was just going to say, into the pit lane, we've got the military Mazda car 86, which is up into 24th position. Peels in. Right, we've got a stop and go for car 64, and that is the Scuderia Vittoria Porsche, and that's stop and go plus 90 seconds free refuelling infringement. And perhaps no surprise there because the rules regarding refuelling are very strict for obvious safety reasons. So once you break those, you get a fairly substantial penalty for your troubles, and that is what has happened to the Scuderia Vittoria Porsche in 19th place, which it won't relinquish actually as a result of that penalty.
It's interesting, isn't it? On that, again, Paul's earlier point about the gradation of penalties, it sounds like that's one that they've been at before, and they've now been slapped with a quite stiff penalty for that. They're lurking down in 19th place at the moment. They've been there or thereabouts, but before you came back on, Ben, when I was early this morning when I first joined at Beckett's, and I was having a look down the lists to see who was leading the race for the amount of times they'd spent not racing, and it was that team, and I think they've kept their standard up because they're racked up 25 or 26 visits to the pits.
It is 26 visits to the pits.
Which I think they're in the lead in terms of the number of times they've had to come into the pits.
I believe so. Now, if they really put an effort here, they could just tip over 30 in the remaining 3 hours and 24 minutes. I mean, that's surely got to be one of the targets between now and the checker flag.
That's probably 3/4 of an hour spent just twiddling in and out of the pits, isn't it, by the end of the race?
It is. They'll certainly know the pit lane entry and exit very well, won't they?
One would hope so, or they'll get another penalty.
Yes, I think there's probably, I can imagine the conversation was along the lines of you have had 25 pit stops, how have you managed to commit a refuelling infringement?
Yes.
I mean, the other aspect of many pit stops is the impact of the pit lane speed limit. Because as long as you're in the pit lane, you're only doing 30 miles an hour, for that is the pit lane speed limit. Never mind how long you're actually stationary in front of your pit, but even that 30 miles an hour, just going up the pit lane, costs you at the end of the race something like 7 or 8 minutes. Now, what's 7 or 8 minutes? Well, it's about 2 or 3 laps. You know, it's a substantial amount of time just going in the pit lane. You know, never mind about the actual stops and what you do in the stops, but it's the travelling at slow speed in the pit lane.
So if they do rack up 30. Let's be generous and say 10 of those weren't penalties. That's an awful lot of time that they could have saved.
Yes. In their class, most of the other cars have had 14 or 15 pit stops, those that have run, broadly speaking, Trouble 3. So, yes.
Yes. Well, there we are. I tell you what, if every single person who's here in every single team turns up next year, I would like to be able to guarantee that they do half as many stops next time. It's one of those things you've just got to learn, isn't it?
Although, of course, a big issue with that is probably it's nothing to do with the crew and the mechanics at all, but rather the drivers and their adventures out on track.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Well, the Aquila remains the fastest car on track and is about 10 seconds a lap quicker than everybody else at the moment. In the 211s, the 211.3 was its last lap, and that compares to the race leading car with a 2 minutes 20.0 last time around.
Ben, the answer to the question who's in Eclipse now, it's Sean that's gone back out, and Phil Keen's here with me. Phil, you had an interesting stint last time out, which was full of good things and bad things, but the main bad thing was that you got stuck down that stove for about 15 minutes.
Yeah, we had a roll bar brake which punctured the tyre, and luckily it put us in the gravel, not in the wall. So it took a while to recover and get it back to the pits, and we lost a few laps, but you know, the car feels good still.
Not in the context of 24 hours, but in the context of most races, there's an awful lot that can still go on. But at least in the context, the pressure is off them, as Phil said, in terms of having to really push that car to the ragged edge now.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chris. That was really interesting to hear from Phil. Yeah, thanks very much, wasn't it? Because to hear from Phil. He was just still having to sound a very cautionary note, and still having to sound. It's also very difficult, actually, for a driver to drive within yourself, because actually you particularly see this in junior single-seater racing when a driver has built up an enormous lead, and then they actually have to take a step back from racing at 10 tenths, and that's when the mistakes come, and that's when they go flying off the road. Well, the McInerney's at Anfield keep vastly experienced endurance drivers, so it's not at Anfield keep vastly experienced so much of a challenge for them, but thinking back almost 12 hours ago during the night, we heard from Sean in the pit lane then, and he was saying that his mind was wandering, he was thinking about what his kids were doing after school tomorrow, that kind of thing along the backstraight circuit, and actually now with that lead to preserve, it really is requiring maximum focus.
That's right, and of course you then get the fatigue factor encroaching on it as well, because of course Mike didn't do any driving during the night, so it was all down to Sean and Phil to do the nighttime driving, so they were very much sleep, although they were doing double stints, so they've got sleep, 2 hours driving, and then 2 hours rest during the night time, and that will have worked for them. during the night time. But the note the kind of undertone of what I was hearing there was these are racing cars. Racing cars are built. These are racing cars as finely tuned thoroughbreds, and lots of things can break on them. He knows already. He's had the anti-roll bar brake on him. Completely nothing he could do about it. Pitched him into the gravel bed, not into the barrier. That was pure luck. He said so himself. That was pure luck himself. So it's that kind of thought that over the number of laps that they're still going to complete. They're still going to complete race distance a little while ago. Didn't I stab it? Write that down. Race distance a little while ago. That's right. We're going to have to say maybe 550 laps. Let's say roughly 550 laps. Therefore, another 55 laps to go in the race. Anything could happen in 55 laps. It's far enough. Anything could happen. That things can happen. It's far enough that things can happen. I think that's what's going through Phil's mind. Is that we'll focus on our job of driving. The mechanics will focus on their jobs of refueling. Driving. The mechanics. But then you've just got to refueling. Have enough in hand that you can cater for the unexpected.
Absolutely, and at the moment they've got that. Absolutely, because they've now got a 13-lap advantage over the. Not yet back in its garage at Top Cats Racing Mosler, and then that car will fairly shortly be overhauled by the top two cars in Class 3, who are going to move up second and third on the overall race podium. Class 3 Racing, Aston Martin car 49 podium, number 57 Marcus Racing Lotus.
We're not going to see the Top Cat car again. I didn't see the impact. I saw the cloud of dust. I didn't see the impact. You don't see the car like that again.
It was buried to its windscreen under the tyres. It was buried to its windscreen under the tyres.
We won't be seeing it again.
No, I agree. I'm just trying to strike an optimistic note.
Well, I think we all have been. Even if it was, that they thought, okay, we could take a risk and repair it. They thought, the heart's gone out of that now. The heart's gone out of that now. It needs something which it hasn't got anymore. My eyes are still on the so-called Orient Express from the Top Cats team, that number 53. I mentioned it to Brian earlier on, Ben. I'm not sure if you were listening at the time. 54th that car was at the end of the first hour. Out of 57 starters. And it's 57 starters. I wouldn't say fought its way up, because I don't think there's been any fighting involved. It's just typical Japanese efficiency. They've just built something that they're happy with and they can get on with, and it works for them. So they're happy with and they can get on with, and it works for them. If there's another calamity to happen, then just let it happen to something other than that Japanese crude Marcos Mantis, because they've had all their misfortune, they've got over it, and they've got the car up into a remarkable sixth place.
You probably should be able to tell where I am, because there's nice music playing in the background. Down at Disco Master. I was loving this about 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm here with Major Jim Cameron, who's just got out after a very long 2.5 hours. And he's pleased to see that Jim McCarr is up in 24th place overall.
Yeah, delighted. I mean, we lost a lot of time earlier on in the race. Yeah, delighted. I mean, we lost a lot of time. We had a bit of an incident and an altercation with a wall. We had a bit of an incident and an altercation with a wall. One of the Mazda press officers that unfortunately parked her car a bit too close to the garage, and we've removed all the front end of it. It's now going around on the front of the race car. It's now
going around
on the front of the race car. She was a bit concerned at first, but the lads were already had the front end off the car before she could do much about it. So I don't know how she's getting home. So if anyone can give a lift to Sam Williams at Mazda PR, then she'd be really grateful. Yeah, so we've been catching up all the way throughout, and by running long stints. Brigadier Mike Hickson ran 2.5 hours in the dark. Mike Hickson ran Tony Jardine ran 2 hours. I ran 3 hours. Jardine ran 2 hours. I ran 3 hours through the sort of real